Now we want to show you how to use the Clad CB3 to lift long horizontal wall panels. When the machine arrives on site, it will be packaged in a steel transport box, similar to this. These are what we use to move the machines around the country through the pallet networks. And it's important that you retain this box on site, take a note of how the machine's packed away inside the box, because it's your responsibility to pack the machine away when you finish with it. So once you're ready, just open the lids on top of the box. And you'll see that the machine is just laid down inside the box, and underneath the machine are all the components that you need for this particular application. Quite often the machine will be held in the box with some plastic ties. Just simply clip those and remove them. And then using the lifting iron at the top of the Clad boy, lift it up and rotate it forward. And what Neil did also was put the locking pin into position to hold it upright. We'll talk about that locking pin in a few minutes. Now the machine is standing on its bottom beam in this cradle inside the transport box. And that's really a good place to store the machine when you're not using it. In that position, the machine is upright and the machine cabinet is a fairly watertight container. Underneath the machine are all the components that you need for the particular application that you're doing. Here we've got, for example, a forklift hook attachment, and you've got the suction pads, which we're going to take out and assemble on the machine shortly. When you're not using the machine, as I mentioned, the best place is to leave it inside the transport box. If you do put it back in the box and lay it back down, make sure you close the lids on the transport box. When the machine's laying down, if rain falls on the machine, it will find its way inside the machine cabinet and cause you some issues at some stage. If you want to leave it without the doors of the transport box closed, leave the machine upright as it's shown now, or close the doors to protect it from rainfall. So we're now just going to attach our overhead crane and lift this machine clear of the box and assemble it. So this particular configuration we're using today is a typical configuration for wall panels which are over 5.5 or 6 meters long and horizontally installed. So there are two suction pads. Each of them are fixed to the ends of extension arms. And they simply slot into the machine, into the bottom beam of the machine. And then they're held in place with the steel pins retained with the R-clips at both sides. On the ends of the extension arms, you need to put these secondary safety straps. Again, one for each end. Neil's just unwrapping the strap before he puts it in, because that will save time later. That just slots into the end, and again it's retained with a locking pin and an R-clip. The final thing to do is connect the suction pad hoses all the way through to the bottom of the machine. Now all the hose connections are on quick release couplings. To make them, you just squeeze them together, you hear a positive click, and to release them, push it up, push the collar up and pull it out. Very straightforward. So now we've got two suction pads Each of these suction pads is rated at 175 kilo. So we've got 2 pads at that, which means this machine has got a safe working load of 350 kilos. And as I mentioned earlier, there are different applications and configurations. If your horizontal wall panels, for example, are less than 5.5 or 6 meters long, these same pads may be mounted underneath the machine on this beam here. But it depends, whatever the panels are you intend to lift, we'll send the correct configuration to site to suit those panels. So just to talk through some of the features of the machine before we actually switch it on. It is a battery operated machine. When the machine arrives on site, it will have been charged before it left our warehouse. And inside the cabinet, you'll see the machine batteries. In this case, there are 2 batteries, the battery charger, the vacuum pump, and various other components. Inside here, you'll also find some spare seals for the suction pads, and you'll find the machine manual. And inside the machine manual, there's a copy of the Lola certificate and also instructions concerning wind speeds, daily checklists, etc. That cabinet can stay closed when you're not accessing the documents. And when it's closed, as I keep repeating, it's a fairly watertight container. The battery charger cable is in the side on a small box. Just plugs into a normal 110 volt supply, and when that's plugged into a live supply, this orange light will illuminate. Can you lock that gate, please? On the same side of the machine, you've got the voltmeter, indicates the state of the battery. When the machine's switched on, that will register, and I'll show you that in a minute or two. This particular machine is a 24 volt machine, so the battery meter will always hang around 24 to 25 volts. It will never indicate higher than that, and it will certainly never go up the full scale to 32 volts, so don't expect that. You've got the main on-off switch, an acoustic warner. You've got the water trap. With these machines, you can lift wet panels and you can operate in the rain. Just use common sense and wipe the excess water away from where the suction pads are going to locate. But keep your eye on this water trap. The water will accumulate in here, and the best time to drain it is after a shift or after the end of the working day. Switch the machine off, release the suction, and then unscrew the black plastic screw, let the water drain out, and then reinsert this screw. But be very careful, it's a plastic screw, it's easy to cross-thread it, and don't over-tighten it. Also underneath there is the pivot pin, which we'll talk about at several stages. Going around the other side of the machine, finally, you've got the vacuum control lever. At the moment, that's in the venting state. To apply suction, when we actually put it on the panel, we'll rotate that upwards, so it's locked into position, and that's the suction position. And to release it, you can't accidentally catch it here, so you need to push that up and pull the lever down to release suction. And very finally, you've got the vacuum gauge on the front of the machine. We'll see that operating shortly. And you've got the green light, which will indicate a safe lifting condition, and obviously the red light, which is linked to an acoustic warner. So we're just going to switch the machine on. When I switch it on, it's going to go through a small process, and I'll probably stop talking for a few seconds.